Thank you. Wait, am I speaking in this or this? Seems like I have a mic already. Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Calson. I'm a Taiwanese American, but I've been back and forth between Taiwan and the U.S. my entire life. Just a little bit about myself. I studied computer science and electrical engineering. I actually started my career here in Taiwan as an RF engineer. And I worked on consumer electronic devices like network routers and switches that are sold around the world. Working in Taiwan, I did that for a few years, but the hours were long and the margins were really tiny. So I actually didn't stay in the hardware space for too long. But I do have intimate knowledge about how hard people work here in Taiwan to bring the technology that we use around the world. I eventually went back to the U.S. I switched over to the software side, and I was lucky enough to get into the fairly lucrative market of digital ad tech. And along the way, I stumbled onto Bitcoin in 2013, and I fell down the rabbit hole fairly quickly. Quickly enough that by 2018, I was like, I don't want to work in digital ad tech anymore. I want to spend all my time thinking and working on Bitcoin. So that's just a little bit of myself. Now, so I'm one of the members here at Taiwan BitDevs. We founded in 2021, and today I want to talk about Taiwan's role in Bitcoin. This is kind of a topic that we introduce a lot here at Taiwan BitDevs. A lot of Taiwanese people don't quite understand exactly what kind of impact Bitcoin has on people in Taiwan. So I'm going to talk about the physical. What I think is the physical side of Bitcoin, how kind of Taiwan fits into it, and if I get the chance to, I'll share a little bit about Taiwanese culture and monetary history, and what we've been doing here in Taiwan to reach out to other Bitcoiners around the world. When we talk about the physical side of Bitcoin, this is a kind of a talk that we usually give some of the more non-technically minded people here in Taiwan. We get some people coming into Taiwan BitDevs. Maybe they come from a finance background, especially the guys are on the older side. They always talk to me like, hey, Bitcoin is all digital. I can't see it, I can't smell it, I can't touch it. How do I know it's real? Which I think is kind of funny to talk about when we're in Taiwan, because most Taiwanese people are fairly familiar using digital money anyway. So when they bring this kind of gotcha moment, I kind of laugh it off. But at this particular topic, I do want to point out that as Bitcoin has grown for the last 15 years, there really is a physical side to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin doesn't exist in a vacuum. It requires a network of honest nodes to participate with one another, and that requires real hardware. And what's unique about Taiwan is that all the components that basically run the Bitcoin network, whether or not it's the CPUs in your nodes, the RAM that stores the UTXO set, the network equipment that sends the data around, or the ASIC mining chips, Taiwan, unlike most other places in the world, we actually make all those components here. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with where this screenshot is from, but yeah, great. Armageddon, yeah. Russian components, American components, all made in Taiwan. And that's still very true today. Okay, so as we all know, Bitcoin hit an amazing milestone this year. And back in October, we hit 1 exahash. So when I have the skeptics come to Taiwan BitDevs and saying like, hey, I can't see, touch, or feel Bitcoin, what are you talking about? I like to point them to this graph and say, Bitcoin network has a computing power of 1 zeta hash per second. Now, that obviously kind of glosses over most people's minds, but I kind of want to take this opportunity to let people kind of really think about what this actually entails. Now, obviously, when I did this presentation 2 months ago, at Taiwan BitDevs, we actually hit a 1.2 exahash. And so this particular talk I was giving was saying that just 3 years ago, we were only at 200 exahash. And then we hit a zeta hash just 3 years later. Okay, so for the skeptics, we're saying like, hey, how does that graph you just showed me translate to physical hardware? And this is when we get to that description. I'm sure most of the people are familiar with how we calculate network difficulty. So if we actually start with Bitcoin in the very, very beginning, we started at difficulty at 1. We were looking for a block hash that has this many zeros. Leading zeros. And if we actually look at some of the recent blocks that are coming into the Bitcoin network, difficulty is this high now. And what does that mean? Oh, what does that mean? For a valid block hash, there's a lot more leading zeros. So we would describe to our skeptics here in Taiwan, it's like you cannot find these hashes within a span of 10 minutes without a significant amount of hardware. And again, the difficulty number that we're looking at in the Bitcoin software, this is not something that we pulled out of a hat. As we all know, the difficulty adjustment has its parameters, has its rules. So it's capped to go up and it's capped to go down, and it's kind of restricted within its own rule set. So the fact that we hit this number is actually incredibly amazing. So let's actually talk about what that looks like. For the purposes of this conversation, I kind of want to rewind the clock back to 2022. At the time, the Bitcoin network was already using the Antminer S21, which uses a 7-nanometer chip that's actually diffused here at TSMC. If any of the Bitcoin miners may be familiar, the chip that's being used, the BM170. It's a 70-millimeter chip. It's 49 millimeters. It looks like this. If anyone's familiar, this is the BitX project that uses these chips. So just to kind of help visualize, what does one zeta hash actually look like? By the way, there's a few caveats to this particular calculation right here. First of all, I know that the Bitcoin network is not only 7-nanometer chips today, the amount of useful dies you get out of a 12-inch, 300-millimeter wafer is also not just 1,000. There's edge losses. There's different yield. But if we actually look at the mining performance of the BM170, which is 1.2 terahashes, and you want to add up to 1 zeta hash, and you want to fit them all on a wafer, you need 830,000 wafers to get 1 zeta hash worth of computing power. And while this is just simple napkin math, you can actually kind of map that against devices that we are more familiar with today. So I looked at the 7-nanometer iPhones, which is the iPhone X, the 11, and the second generation SE. And they sold about 300 million of these devices while they were active. And if you actually added up all the amount of wafers that they used to create all those iPhones, it's 460,000. So you can imagine in the last 3 years, the Bitcoin network itself has consumed at least this many wafers. Because again, I'm also not accounting for the operational loss, because everyone runs their Bitcoin miners in different environments. They have different stresses. They may fail before their lifetime and things of the sort. So at least 830,000 wafers, which is incredibly significant. That's a lot of computing power. OK. Sorry, I'm kind of a little bit out of my element here, but when I like to talk about Taiwan, we all know that Taiwan has a very, very dominant. Taiwan has a dominance on the semiconductor network, and we also have to consider that wafer space is limited. Right? So what Taiwanese foundries choose to manufacture is a big consideration. And unlike the other demands for wafers today, like most of the people talk about AI, Bitcoin is unique in that it doesn't actually need these government funding or government backstops. They're able to consume this many wafers just on the Bitcoin demand itself. And so when I bring this up with people here in Taiwan, I just want them to consider that, think about all the work that goes into producing these chips. Right? That's not just the TSMC and their foundries. There's a whole very complex supply chain to get those things involved. There's a lot of human capital. There's a lot of expertise, and there's a lot of coordination just for these things to happen. So if we think about just what has been produced in Taiwan for the sake of the Bitcoin network to operate, that's a lot of work that Taiwanese people have done. And I just want to let people kind of think about, it's like, well, where is all this work that Taiwanese people have been doing actually going? And I want to make the case that, as we see Bitcoin succeed, it also helps Taiwan prosper also. Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling on a little too much. Oh, and just add one more thing too. We were just talking about the mining, the mining chips, but we also have to remember that Bitcoin decentralization depends on honest nodes. It depends on the ability for anybody to spin on a node on the Bitcoin network, which requires affordable, secure computing. And that's something that Taiwan has been doing very, very well for the last four decades. And so while Taiwan may not be as dominant of a leader in terms of RAM or storage, they're still a very significant player. So Samsung, Hynix, Micron may produce most of the RAM chips, but number 4, number 5 on the global market list are also still Taiwanese manufacturers. So Taiwan does have a really, really big stake in creating in producing affordable, secure computing. And I think a lot of it that has to do is, in Taiwan, I think Taiwan culture in general likes to foster innovations that create more free trade, because Taiwan has a really rich history of producing free trade around the world. Okay, so I kind of want to share a little bit of a personal story. I know that since my education is mostly hardware and software, I think for many of the years when I was in Bitcoin, I really did see Bitcoin as just a software project, or it's like a very interesting protocol that we can use all sorts of imaginations to build a lot of things. I didn't think too much about the economic side about Bitcoin for a very, very long time. Now, I know that for most people who have been in Bitcoin for a while, they somehow kind of always find their interest in economic and monetary history, whether or not they binge on a bunch of Bitcoin podcasts or they read a lot of books. But for me, even before I read the Bitcoin Standard, what really clicked for me in terms of Bitcoin and me being Taiwanese were really connected was during the pandemic. So my grandma is 101 years old, and while we were kind of locked in at home, she was flipping through her old stuff. And then she pulled out of a safe these old Taiwanese bills. So this one here is a Taiwanese yen. This is basically issued by the Bank of Taiwan while during Japan's colonization. So this was from 1915, and this was basically first issued starting from 1897. And then also along with these things was this Japanese war bond from the end of World War II. And it turns out that these things were left by my grandfather and my great-grandmother. And he had a little stack of these Taiwanese yen bills and a little stack of these Japanese war bonds. And I think before I got into Bitcoin, I would have just thought, oh, these are just really interesting historical artifacts. These are just collectibles. But after I really understood what Bitcoin was, these things had a completely different impact on me, and I kind of want to share with you that today. So now that we're here in Taiwan, what's something that we don't even talk about in Taiwanese education in general is the history of money that we have here in Taiwan. Now, what's kind of surprising to see is that prior to the establishment of the Bank of Taiwan during the Japanese Empire, Taiwan, even though it was part of the Ming Dynasty and the Qing Dynasty, limited, they actually never had a circulating currency around the island. So up until 1897, there was no singular currency in Taiwan, which meant that the economic activity that was happening on the island actually could not be directed correctly. Right? You'd have different trading outposts. So before the Japanese came, we had the Qing dynasty. They offered a lot of like British trade coming in. The French once tried to come, and even before that, we had the Spanish and the Dutch settlers. So there was a lot of different kind of money flowing around in Taiwan. But after Japan came over, they established the Bank of Taiwan. That's when we first had those notes that we said before. Now, on my research, the idea was saying like, hey, so how much was my great-grandmother's savings back then? So back then, that one Taiwanese yen note would have got you 0.75 grams of gold. But by the end of the Japanese Empire, which is the end of World War II, that conversion was already stopped, and no one actually knows what the rate was at the end. But you can basically safely say that the value of it collapsed. So after the end of World War II, Taiwan was then taken over by the nationalist government of the Republic of China. And they basically started issuing the old Taiwan dollar. And what they offered was the Central Bank of China would offer the conversion between the Taiwanese yen and what we call the old Taiwan dollar at 1-to-1. But that actually collapsed fairly quickly because the Republic of China was still fighting their civil war in mainland China, and they experienced their own hyperinflation. Their central bank actually collapsed by 1948. And then, so by 1949, all this chaos was happening around the island. We'll talk a little bit about that more. But basically, this inflation went to 40,000 to 1. So it went from 1-to-1 to 40,000 to 1. And because the Republic of China no longer had their Central Bank of China, which was still back in mainland China, they actually had no banking infrastructure anymore to issue new currency. So the only thing they had left was the Bank of Taiwan, which again was established by the Japanese Empire. So the Republic of China then had the Bank of Taiwan start issuing what we call the new Taiwan dollar. And they were basically issuing the new Taiwan dollar from 1949 up to the year 2000. And then so that's this guy right here. This is the money that I was using when I was growing up. Oh, sorry. So this is the old Taiwan dollar, and this is the new Taiwan dollar issued by the Bank of Taiwan. This is Taiwan Bank. Okay, but by the year 2000, which is the money that you guys have in your wallets right now, it says Central Bank of China. So they basically revived the Central Bank of China to issue currency back in 2000. So what I would like to point, so this is what's been interesting, thinking about Bitcoin and being interested in how money works, is that there's actually a lot to learn, just even looking at the economics. So Bitcoin no longer was just a software project to me. It really made me think about the world in a more profound manner. So in Taiwan, we basically saw that the currencies rise and collapse with regimes. And the timeline I just said, from 1897 till now, every single currency that has been in Taiwan has failed fairly quickly. Even the one that we're using today has only a provenance of 25 years of being issued by the Central Bank of China. And throughout this whole entire history of having a singular currency circulating in Taiwan, Taiwanese have never controlled their own money. Because strictly speaking, even the money that we're using today, the new Taiwan dollar, is still issued by the Republic of China. And Taiwan is only but a territory of the Republic of China. And by the way, I just want to point out, it's like exactly how this hyperinflation happened. So the old Taiwan dollar, so 1948, the president, Chiang Kai-shek, basically had a fixed rate conversion between what they call the gold yuan, which is a gold-backed currency of mainland China, and then with the US dollar. And then they also still had their the Chinese currency, which is this guy right here, that's circulating in China. And then shortly after that, they created a fixed rate between the Chinese gold yuan currency with the Taiwan currency. But they kept this rate fixed, as in they actually, this was the fixed exchange rate. So while the exchange rate was blowing up in China because of the Chinese Civil War, they always had this fixed exchange rate to run back to. And that caused a flood of money come from mainland China coming to Taiwan. And that's what made the currency collapse at such a rapid pace. So we went from 1 to 1,835, and then over here is 1 to 40,000. So in a span of just 2 years. So that's how suddenly these currency collapses can happen. And it happens at a stroke of a pen, right? And this is the history that we have here in Taiwan. And I always like to invite our Taiwanese people to really think about it. It's like, can you imagine, as prosperous as Taiwan has been for the last, let's say 100 years, think about how much prosperous we could have been if we actually had a money that worked, or at least was money that was, that's something that we can call our own. And what would that actually look like? And so that's actually really what brings me to Bitcoin, because when I think about this desire for Taiwan to have its own fate, and what it would look like for Taiwan to have its own money, I think about where would Taiwan's human capital go, where would their expertise go, where would their resources go, right, in order to make this dream come alive. And when you think about how much effort and work has been going into building out the Bitcoin network from people here in Taiwan, perhaps Taiwan is a possible, that could be part of Taiwan's story. And because I know for a lot of people, maybe this is your first time here in Taiwan. Maybe all you hear about from Taiwan is what you see in the news, or you only know Taiwan in the context of our neighbors across the strait. But for anybody that's interested, I do actually suggest this book called Rebel Island. I think it was published about 2 years ago. It's a pretty interesting read. And here at Taiwan BitDevs, when we do have visitors come by, we try to introduce this Taiwan history to people coming. So we actually have Evan over here. This is a couple years ago. I took him to the Gold Museum near Jiufen. So back in the Japanese Empire, Japan was mining gold out of our mountains, and I took Evan there, and to kind of show you, this is where money kind of began here in Taiwan, and no longer do we need humans mining. We can have ASIC chips do it for us. Okay, and just for a final thought, Taiwan is a place without a global standing, so how poetic would it be for a country without global standing be the one that secures digital money? And that's it.